We're going to talk about types of perception. I want to give you this hypothetical scenario here. You can win $100 for certain, or you've got a 50-50 shot at winning $200. I want you to write down your answer wherever in your notes, doesn't matter, but I just want you to take a choice. Take a choice.
Are we turning it in?
No, okay. $100 sure thing, or 50-50 at 200. Right, second one is certainty of losing $100, or 50-50 chance of losing $200. Is it that boring, Juhi?
So it's 50% chance you lose 200, 50% chance you don't lose anything.
Exactly, yeah. So there are obviously some similarities there. I'm gonna come back to that, but I wanted to make you guys kind of pick on those, and I'll come back to that. So, we'll talk a little bit about something called stacked discounts. So you've got two sales, you're looking for a shirt or something, and one is advertised as 50% off, the other is 35% off, and then an additional 20% off. Which one looks like the better deal?
35
This looks like the better deal, right? Why?
Because it's two.
55% is bigger than 50%.
Yeah, 55% is bigger than, right? So this is from the kind of, our perception would be that this is the better discount. But let's do the math. Let's assume it's a $100 shirt, or what's a better example than a shirt?
Tie.
A tie. A boss tie, yeah, good. So it's a $100 boss tie. You can do a 35% discount followed by a 20% discount, and what you end up saving is $48. So which is the better deal? Right, 50% is better than 48. So this is something called stacked discounts, and most people, we're all capable of doing the math here, but our perceptions, most of us, we don't want to do the calculations, and so just from a quick kind of perceived point of view, this stacked discounts seem like a better deal than they are. I'm gonna switch this around on you, and it's for you. All right, so let's kind of switch it around and talk about car values. Say you buy a car that depreciates 50% in 5 years. Well, let's back up here. Why is this less of a discount than this?
Because the 55% isn't off the total amount.
Okay, right, and
So you take the 35%, you already get a lower amount, and then the 20% that's going to take you to 55% is taken not from 100. So that's
It's also
a
a
lower
smaller amount, so it's a smaller.
exactly. So when you stack discounts, each successive discount is taking a little bit less away, right? So even though these add to over 50%, because we're stacking them successively, it doesn't take as much away. So you have to keep that in mind to make sense of this next one, which is you can have a car that's value is halved over 5 years, or that loses 10% each year. So based on that idea of stacking, that each time you stack, you're taking a little bit less away, which do you prefer? Car B, why? It's gonna have more value, right? So even though, from the perspective of just how people perceive things, most people choose this, but in reality, this is the better deal, right? Because of stacked discounts. Each time you take a percentage away, you're taking it from a smaller number. So stacked discounts, that's something, you see this kind of thing fairly often, and they'll seem like a great deal, but you kind of have to keep in mind that stacked discounts you can't, it's not the same as one large discount. Those successive cuts, percentage-wise, a little bit less impressive than they might seem to be. All right, so that's stack discounts. One kind of explanation for this, and I like this explanation, why is it that when, people are, all of us have the math skills to figure out which one is better, but people get tripped up on those kinds of things a lot of the time. And one explanation for this is biological and relates to the fact that the brain accounts for about 2% of your body weight. There's some individual differences in there, but about 2% of your body weight. But consumes between 8 and 10% of your body's total calories, which means that it's very demanding from a caloric perspective. And so one explanation for why we don't think through all those things is that the brain is already taking a ton of calories, so we think less whenever we have the chance to, right? We don't think through everything because the caloric demands would be too high. That's one explanation. All right, so another issue related to perception of prices. 2 gas stations. Gas station A sells gas for $2.30 per gallon, and they give a 10% discount for cash. Gas station B sells gas for $2.20 per gallon, but they have a 10% surcharge if you pay with a credit card. So, which one are you more likely to see?
First one.
Which one are you more likely to see? A. Who says B? You see this more often? No, you see this more often.
Up in the northern states, in like Wyoming, South Dakota, North Dakota, E is huge.
So what's the better deal? Which is the better deal?
It's the same.
Yes.
It's the same, right? There's no difference, right? It's the exact same thing. The difference is in how they are advertised or promoted. It's the same thing, right? A surcharge for a credit card is the same as a cash discount. But the difference is, and the reason you see more of this
Discount.
is that people don't want to be charged, they don't want a surcharge, they want a discount. So even though it's the same thing, when it's framed as a discount, it seems better, right? So you see, discount for cash, Chevron. By the way, why do gas stations why do they want you to use cash rather than credit cards?
So they get charged a percent by the card company?
Right, they get charged a percent by the credit card company. What does the credit card company use that money to do?
Market?
All those miles and all that stuff, all their advertising, and that's how they generate revenue, is by charging vendors a percentage, which, depending on the credit card, is around 3%. So this discount's about, it's a little more than 1%. So the company, the gas station, comes out way ahead by doing a 1.5% discount for cash, because they're saving 3% on each transaction, right? So that's why they do that. But from the perspective of marketing, if you call it a surcharge, you're going to piss people off who use their credit card. If you call it a discount, then people are that seems more acceptable. Jake?
Gas stations want you to use cash. Why do they make it so much easier to use your credit card?
Well, I think that's just become a competitive thing. The gas station that didn't take credit cards would not do any business, right? Or they do very little business. So they might be.
Or they made you go inside for it?
Yeah, they might be, yeah, exactly.
I feel like it's like a compromise. Like you're paying with your card for the convenience instead of getting cash and the discount. Does that make sense? Like I feel like
Right.
that's like a mental, like you're just like taking, like, I don't know, like, so we talk about like your time is money, and I think that's part of it, like it's 10 cents, so like in 10 cents using my credit card, I'm saving myself the time to have to get my cash and take it inside.
Yeah,
Is that like, does that make sense?
No,
Is that
no, I
right?
do-
Like, is
yeah,
that the
yeah.
right-
No,
That's what I'm asking, if it was like the right thought process, I guess.
no, exactly, that's why, even though there are cash discounts, most people just pay with a card anyway. At Florida State, they had, if you paid your tuition with a credit card, they had a convenience fee, and they jammed you on it. It was like $80, convenience fee. What's that? Really?
Yeah.
That's outrageous.
Yeah.
But the.
But you
know,
still pay it, because you don't wanna pull out
Yeah, yeah,
thousands of dollars or whatever.
yeah. Do they take cash, by the way? You pay your tuition in cash?
Yeah, it's
They have to.
Pennies, let's do it.
Isn't there also like a weird disconnect between a credit card versus cash? Like people are more willing to spend with that card versus with cash, so they have more liberty to charge it with the credit card?
Oh, completely, yeah, and so credit card, debit card, cash is kind of how it goes in terms of your connection to money. People spend way more on credit cards than they do on debit cards as compared to cash. But the real difference though is cash to any card, that it stings when to pay cash, and people tend to be a lot more conservative with their money when they're paying cash for something. So the term for this is loss aversion, where there's a preference, and we've talked about this when we talked about good and, good versus bad. Remember the thing where we talked about the effect on happiness of losing $50? Does anyone remember this bit? Compared to losing, what do you remember?
You'll get way more angry, like, you'll have way more emotion if you lose $50 than if you gain $50.
Exactly, and so the idea was you'd have to gain about $100 to offset the upset that would come from losing $50.
That played into like negative experiences get like recalled more than positive experiences, right?
Yeah.
That was all played together.
Yep. So this is something I use in my class, is this idea of loss aversion. So the on-time bonus is a perfect example of loss aversion, right? Because one way to do it would be, you guys have all those chapters to read, and I could give you a bonus at the end of the semester for everything that's on time. Or you could start with a bonus that you lose over time. Which one works better and why?
Starting with the bonus and then losing over time? Because we would work harder to avoid that losing versus working harder to get the bonus.
Exactly, yeah.
See the reward.
What's that?
You see the reward at the beginning, you don't wanna lose the reward you got.
Yeah, we're more sensitive to losses than to gains, which is why this works. I'll show you right now that there are 29 students out of 40 in this class who have not lost a single point, not had anything. Like, the average is 5, meaning, so out of 7, so out of a total, so a possible 7, and this is, so almost everybody is between 5 and 7, and then there's 1 or 2 that are in the negative zone.
Doesn't that also play off of temporal discounting? Because if you have like a bonus at the end, it's like way far off, and it's like, oh, I could miss this today, and it's not even gonna affect me until months down the road, whereas if you lose the points, you see the points go away.
Yeah, that's you see that too. So, yeah, the immediate loss, that stings more than some kind of bonus at the end of the semester. But if you, that's a good.
Have you ever done it the other way to see, like?
I haven't, and I've kind of been toying with that idea.
That's such a class.
But I'd have to have 2 classes, same subject, and then kind of reverse it. But I think that one class would end up kind of getting screwed, right? The incentives aren't optimal for those students.
You can just give it back to them at the end of the year, say you were a guinea pig.
Make them react like what, yeah.
Yeah, I'm doing it.
Oh, yeah. That's not a bad way to do it. Thanks, guys. All right, so coming back to this, the reason I wanted to have you guys declare on this first is that this is another example of loss aversion. So who took the $100 sure bet? Raise your hands. That's about 89.5%. I'm really good with math. That took this. What about this? Who took the 50-50 on the 200? So about 70% of you. So the reversal is because, you know, and this is typically how people do it. This is almost always how people answer it. They'll take the $100 for sure, but they'll take the 50-50 bet on the 200. This is because of loss aversion, right? Which is, if there's a chance to avoid the loss, you're gonna take that chance. Even if one of the things that comes out of that is that you could double your losses. So I'm curious who answered this differently. And I'm just curious what your thought, did you guys copy each other? I'm just curious what your thoughts were, because that's just outside of the mainstream, but.
I'm a planner, so I'd rather plan either way.
Oh, so you take the.
I'd take the 100 either way, so you can just plan ahead and know what's gonna happen, but.
Good.
I was the risk taker, I did 50-50 on both.
Okay. So you were consistent, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I take the chance on the winning 200 because either way, like, if I lose, I'm just where I'm at versus definitely losing something. If I'm gonna lose something, I'd rather be sure of what I'm gonna lose.
Wow, that's weird.
Yeah.
No, just when people buck this pattern, it's almost always to be consistent, right? So I mean, that's statistically, that's unusual, because when people go outside of this pattern, it's almost always, you know, take the sure win, take the sure loss, or take, you know, the gambler profile, you know, risk it for, you know, for winning and risk it for losing.
For the loss, I thought of like fixing stuff yourself. At least that's how it works in my family, is when you try to fix something yourself, you either it works or it doesn't and you made it worse. And so like, or you could pay the mechanic $100 to fix it the first time. And so that's what came to mind for the losing.
Yeah.
Is you can pay the mechanic to fix it or you try to fix it yourself and it works or you double your loss.
Yeah, we talk a lot about kind of how unfair life is to women. Let me tell you how life is unfair to men. We're expected to know how to fix things. You know how bad that sounds? For real. It's unfair. I just want you all to know that I can't fix a damn thing. And I'm proud of it. All right, so we were talking last time about reference prices, and I want to kind of revisit that topic. This is a pretty good example of external reference prices, and I'm not sure how that relates to this. But this is really what I want to talk about, the last perceptual issue, which is how do you price? Kind of traditional product line pricing is where you've got different products at different price levels, and these roughly correspond to your costs. So this costs more for customers because it costs more to you, and you're not. The main thing here is that you're not trying to push customers to any one thing. This is cheaper because it costs you less. This is more expensive because it costs you more. And as a retailer, you're more or less ambivalent about which one people choose. That's kind of the traditional approach to product line pricing. And I mention this because we're going to talk about two exceptions to that, which is when you want people to choose a specific price. You've got specific product. You've got a series of products, but rather than being ambivalent about which one they pick, you have an opinion about which one you want them to pick, and so you're trying to steer them in that direction. Here's another example of kind of traditional product line pricing. You know, the cost to you vary, and so you don't really have a strong opinion about this pricing strategy isn't set up to steer people in one particular direction. That's kind of traditional product line pricing. Surrounding is takes advantage of the fact that most people will go with the medium or mid-priced option. And this one is pretty, you know, when it comes to coffee, for example, whatever the mid-tier sizes and prices, that's where people tend to gravitate. Whatever that price point is, people kind of go, they kind of shoot for the middle. And so this is a none too subtle way of steering you by surrounding, right? You've got inexpensive, you've got expensive, and this one's clearly highlighted. This is an example of surrounding, because what you're trying to do is steer people to this one. That's surrounding. So asymmetric dominance is yet another way to steer people. Let's say that you guys own a peanut butter stand. And you've got two kinds of peanut butter. You've got Skippy and Jif, and you charge the same. Does anyone have a strong opinion about peanut butter? Jif?
Crunchies.
Peter Pan.
Peter Pan is kind of good.
Peter Pan.
Yeah, so let's say these are split 50-50 between the two of them. Can you increase the likelihood that people will choose a specific product by adding another option? So in other words, can you go from a 50-50 split to above 50% by adding another option?
Maybe if you had like a great value next to it, like a super discounted lower version.
So let's say you want more people to buy Jif.
Jim.
Just put more juice there, yeah.
More Jifs, what do you mean?
Or like put more in 1 ounce and or. so
Oh, I see what you're saying, you're
like
talking,
display
yeah.
scarcity
If you had
almost,
two
Yeah,
Jifs
yeah.
and one Skippy.
like this one, everybody likes, so there's less of them, so.
Let me ask you this, so these are split 50-50, you add Peter Pan to it, right? It's charged the same for all of these. I don't know why I didn't go with 250, but this seems. 248. What's gonna happen to the split if we add Peter Pan?
33.3%.
You'll probably be at about 33% each, right? And this, but what if we did, instead of that, we added this? We added a little Jif. It's about a third the size.
So they'll pick Jif, but the same size as the other one.
But it's only the 15 cents cheaper.
Yeah, 15 cents cheaper and maybe a third the size. So what percentage of people are gonna take this? Nobody.
It's gonna turn your
The big Jif reference price is higher now.
Yeah, so what's gonna happen, watch this, see that? That's CGI right there.
Transformers.
But, so this is called asymmetric dominance, and I'll give you a couple definitions. It's much easier understood through examples than through definitions. When choosing between 3 options, people will prefer the one that is asymmetrically dominated. And that means you pick the option that is similar and superior to a clearly bad option. This is sometimes called the decoy effect. So the original kind of study that established that framed it in terms of real estate. And I don't remember the exact specifics, but let's say, call this neighborhood A, call this neighborhood B, and so let's say these are about the same price. Say this one has an okay house and a great yard. This one has great, house and an okay yard. If you wanted people to choose this one, right, what would you do? How could you steer people to this option? neighborhood A option.
Have your neighbors have a second yard.
Have, which one?
Like, your neighbor's yard needs to look terrible, and then they'll see your nice yard compared to your neighbor's.
So show them an option that's similar to this, but clearly inferior, right? So in other words, what you might do is show them a house in this neighborhood A that is okay house, nice yard, and way more expensive.
Way more expensive.
Yeah, that would steer people to this option, right? Because it's clearly superior to an option that is similar to it, right? That's the whole idea of asymmetric dominance. Like I said, it's also called the decoy effect, because you're putting an option out there that no reasonable person would want.
So in this scenario, would you not use a okay house as the decoy, an okay house with a terrible yard? Or would that still also?
Well, that kind of theoretically that would work. In the case of real estate, though, that kind of contaminates things a little bit, right? Because, but in theory, yeah.
Would it be kind of like the wine, like the wine one where if you find out your friend offers you a bottle of wine, it's the same kind of wine, but they say you're gonna get it at a nice resort or just like a convenience right down the store, then you're willing to pay more for the wine? So is that why in real estate they would pick the expensive house in the yard? So they would be willing to pay more for the okay house in the yard?
So this is more about moving people from two choices, steering them to one. So typically, if you've got two main price points, and you want to move people to one of those price points, you come up with a third option that's entirely a decoy. And the idea is to just move people in the direction of the one you want them to by showing them something that is similar but inferior to it. Does that answer your question? So there's not a whole lot of relationship between, what we were talking about there was just kind of the idea that your prices are based on expectations. With the wine scenario, that was more the idea that people don't have a firm sense for what something should cost. And instead they base what something should cost, or what they're willing to pay by what they expect it to cost. That was more of the idea there. So we come back to this, the reason this works is because this is clearly inferior, but similar to Jeff. So a couple examples. The Economist, it's a magazine for smart people, such as yourselves. Where's the decoy here of the three options?
The middle one.
Why is this the decoy?
Same thing, same price as the other one, but less stuff.
Right, so originally, probably, I don't know, but they probably had online-only subscription and print and online subscription. They added one that clearly nobody would want. And so which one does this push people towards? Print and, right? Why?
Double stuff.
Why does it move people here instead of here? It's similar, right? These are similar price, and because this is better, it pushes people towards this option.
Which is good for them, because you get a more expensive option.
Exactly. So where's the decoy here? Let's look at these prices here. 1 year for $179, 2 years for $279, or 3 years for $299. Where's the decoy? $279, right? Nobody in the right mind would go with that one. So what does that push people towards? The $299, right? The 3 years for $299, because that's most similar price-wise to this one. This one's a little bit hard to see. It's a little bit outdated, but you've got 3 different options, and this is clearly a terrible option. It's the same price as this, but it's a lower internet speed. And so it pushes people to this option, right? Because these two are the most similar. but this one is clearly superior, so it moves people in this direction. So that's asymmetric dominance, also called decoy effect. Endowment effect. The endowment effect is this idea that what people think something is worth depends a lot on whether they own it or not. And that once you own something, you change your perspective on how much that is worth. I don't work in real estate, but you can see this in real estate a lot, right? Which is people who don't own a house think the house is worth a lot more than the people who do own it. But it's not, there's self-interest involved there too, but it's more than that. Roberta.
Is that kind of where dissonance theory plays in? Like, once you already have the house that you behave, you're gonna like justify it by like, oh yeah, this is a great house, it's an awesome house. Type thing.
So there's some self-justification to it too, but it's more than that. And I'll give you a study that pretty interesting. What they did was they gave students, so they gave half of a class mugs, coffee mugs, and they said, so half the class got mugs and half the class didn't. And the ones who got it were asked, what is the least that you would sell this mug for? The other half who didn't get the mugs were asked, what's the most you would pay to buy that mug? Now, if people are purely rational, those numbers would be the same, right? But according to the endowment effect, who's gonna set the price higher? The people who own it, and this is what they found. So for sellers, people who had the mug, they put the price at $5.25. People who didn't have the mugs put the price at $2.25 on average, right? So when you have something, suddenly it becomes worth a lot more to people. This, by the way, is why these try-it-free programs work, right? Because once you've taken possession of it, then you see more value in it, and you're kind of more reluctant to let it go. This works with like test driving a car, for example. There's some, once you sit in a car and you drive it, you start to take mental possession of it, and suddenly you're much less likely to let that opportunity go, right? Because you've begun to take mental possession of it. Test driving. There's this great study that was done at Duke University, and what they did. So Duke is famous for what? Basketball, right? And they have way more demand for tickets than they have supply, especially for student tickets. And what they do is they do a lottery, so they have everybody line up, and they take a number, and then their numbers, you're either called or not, right? You either get the chance to, you either get the tickets or you don't. It's just purely by chance who gets the tickets and who doesn't. So some researchers, a guy named Dan Ariely, was at Duke as a professor, and what he did was he got numbers and contact information from people who were in line, and then he went after and called them to find out whether they got the tickets or not. And then, so for people who didn't get the tickets, he asked, what's the most you'd be willing to pay for tickets? And then he asked people who did get the tickets, what's the least you'd be willing to sell your tickets for? So whose price would be higher?
People
People who got the tickets, right? And the difference in this case was by a factor of, I'm gonna be dramatic about it and write it. It was by a factor of 14. So they wanted 14 times higher price for the tickets. So this isn't just, people who stood in line versus strangers. Everybody stood in line, so presumably everybody wanted the tickets. But getting the tickets actually made people value them much more.